I'd like to read this morning from the Gospel according to Luke 17, verses 11 through 19. This is the story of Jesus healing the 10 lepers. As Jesus made his way to Jerusalem, he went along the border between Samaria and Galilee. He was going into a village when he was met by 10 men suffering from a dreaded skin disease. They stood at a distance and shouted, "Jesus, Master, have pity on us." Jesus saw them and said to them, "Go and let the priests examine you." On the way, they were made clean. When one of them saw that he was healed, he came back, praising God in a loud voice. He threw himself to the ground at Jesus' feet and thanked him. The man was a Samaritan. Jesus spoke up. There were 10 who were healed. Where are the other 9? Why is this foreigner the only one who came back to give thanks to God? And Jesus said to him, "Get up and go. Your faith has made you well." The healing of the 10 lepers is one of what I call Jesus' long-distance miracles. He doesn't heal anyone on the spot, but instead tells 10 still diseased men to go show themselves to the priests. The lepers are social outcasts. They are exiles from everything and everyone they hold dear. And as Jewish law demands, they must live outside the community until they are cured. In the meantime, they live in caves or large holes dug 10 to 12 feet into the ground. Their food is lowered down to them in buckets. If ever they are cured, they must then be examined head to toe by the priest. So in effect, by telling these lepers to go to the priests, Jesus is actually holding out a promise of healing, which is really the potential for healing. But picking up on that promise, the lepers hightail it to the temple, only to discover about halfway there that indeed they are healed. And one of the 10, upon seeing this, whips around and flies back to Jesus, falling at his feet in gratitude and thanksgiving. Jesus, in turn, responds with a double question. Didn't I heal 10 lepers? Where are the other 9? And therein lies the narrative time bomb of this story. Only one of the 10 healed men returns thanks for what God has done. 1 out of 10. Now, a core belief of our faith, of the Christian faith, is that we live in a world saturated with the goodness of God. Would you agree? Give thanks to God, for He is good. Have you heard that before? Psalm 136 says over and over again, "Give thanks to the God of gods. Give thanks to the Lord of lords." The faith in our hearts tells us that every day, everyone benefits in some way from God's generosity. And the psalmist urges us to recognize this fact and to give thanks. The way we show gratitude to God should not be limited, in other words, to Sunday morning prayers or simple affirmations of our faith in God. In fact, thanksgiving toward God is most obvious, really, in lives that are keenly grateful across the board. In other words, the big river of thanksgiving that flows from us to God should also bubble up in many smaller tributaries of gratitude, right? That flow out toward other people as well. But to do this well will require that we go beyond what is expected of us. We'll have to be on the lookout for any chance to say thank you to all kinds of folks. Instead of brushing past people as though they were no more than cogs in a machine, we'll want to humanize them by lifting them up with a smile and a thank you. It's as simple as that. In the film, The Remains of the Day, the famous actor, you know him, Anthony Hopkins, he plays a butler to a super rich family. And while researching this role, Mr. Hopkins interviewed a real-life butler who told Hopkins that his goal in life is to master the art of blending in. The skilled ability to blend into the woodwork of any room like a mere fixture, on par with table lamps and andirons. In fact, Anthony Hopkins said he will never forget when the man used this sentence to describe what he would consider to be an excellent butler. The room seems emptier when he's in it. The room seems emptier when he's in it. The goal of the excellent butler is to serve the meal, fill the wine glasses, and clear the plates without ever being noticed, much less thanked. But that's just the problem with routine ingratitude, isn't it? It makes people disappear. It makes them invisible. Little by little, ingratitude kills. It kills not only those who never receive thanks, but also those who fail to say thanks. Sooner or later, failing to express gratitude hardens the soul. It can even foster within us an undue sense of entitlement. After a time, we no longer feel obliged to say thank you to the various workers and servers in our lives. Because we feel we deserve the services they've rendered. We've earned these services. Right? Think about going on vacation. We've paid our dues, we've laid down our cash. We slaved away at our own jobs to make this vacation or this dinner out or this shopping spree possible. We fail to say thank you to certain people because this would be to admit that maybe what we're getting in life is less an accomplishment on our part as it is a gift from God. But I say that we ought to notice when spouses or children or parents or waiters or clerks or tellers or busboys, bus drivers, and grocery baggers do a good job. We ought to notice them and what they do, and then offer them an overt and intentional word of thank you. And this means far more than just being polite, the way you were raised by your parents. It's more than that. In the long run, this is a profoundly Christian thing to do. It's a God-like practice of celebrating life as we make other people feel wanted, okay? Appreciated, even special. A simple word of thanks makes people visible. It humanizes them. In her novel Ladder of Years, Anne Tyler, she introduces us to Delia Grinstead. And Delia is a lovely, lovable, and utterly giving wife and mother who regularly does her level best to keep her household running smoothly. But as her children grow up, they become, quote, great, galumphing, unmannerly, and supercilious creatures who ignore Delia and who flinch from her hugs. What's more, they expect that her favorite foods, or their favorite foods, will always be in the pantry or in the fridge. They expect that. But they never thank Delia for purchasing these sundries. Though they will complain loudly if she do forget one day. Am I ringing any bells here? Meanwhile, Delia's husband is so wrapped up in his medical practice that he too brushes past Delia day in, day out, regularly failing to notice the spick and span house, the clean laundry, the warm food set before his distracted face each evening. And after years of neglect, Delia begins to feel like a tiny gnat whirring around her family's edges. A tiny gnat whirring around her family's edges. Their ongoing lack of gratitude has killed something in Delia. Not all at once, mind you, but day by day. Day by day, Delia dies a little, wilting like a flower that receives too little moisture. She doesn't even realize how dead she's become until one day she meets someone who is kind, who thanks Delia for some little thing. This stranger's gratitude is like a few precious drops of water sprinkled onto her soul. A few thankful drops that reveal just how dry, cracked, and barren the landscape of her soul had become. And finally, the day comes when Delia just walks away from her family. She takes a stroll on the beach and just keeps on going. Once her family realizes she is missing, they have a curiously difficult time describing Delia to the police. They just can't seem to recall the color of her eyes, her height, her weight, or what she was wearing when they last saw her. Of course, they had never really seen her to begin with, had they? They had been blinded by ingratitude. And as a result, Delia had become totally dehumanized. She had become as invisible as a butler. And what a huge difference a few thank yous would have made in Delia's life. She would have felt human and empowered. She would have felt visible and valuable as a child of God should feel. Only one healed leper falls at Jesus' feet in gratitude and thanksgiving, prompting Jesus to ask, "Did I not heal 10 lepers? Where are the other 9? And as Lewis Smedes reminds us, life is out of joint when we fail to give thanks. The insensitive way by which some people receive and receive and receive and never say thank you is a baffling phenomenon. Baffling, it seems, even to God. And it's sad. It's sad, really, that many of us experience ingratitude. Sadder still is that ingratitude is something God is used to. Can you imagine? And so I say, let's be like the leper who stops to give thanks for all that God has done. On this Thanksgiving Sunday, and every day from now on, let's be like the leper who gives thanks to God for everything in life, big and small. Let's be like the leper who remembers to give thanks to the God of gods and the Lord of lords. Can we do that? Well, let's do it first in song.